Nice. All right. And so, for those of you that are just tuning in, today we're going to be talking about assists. Now, I know the kind of obvious joke here would be, oh, you just call assists and then boom, they work and whatnot. But I think today we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about assists, such as assist choices, what assists what assists actually maximize your chances of using neutral, or I'm sorry, of winning neutral, which assists and whatnot offer the most control. We're going to be talking about Maai and a lot of the in-depth stuff that we've talked about. So because I am going to be going rather quickly, this will be a slightly shorter stream, and I'm going to try my best to remain focused. So, hopefully we don't get off to any like off-track tangents, and that would be nice. Like that would be nice. But if you guys feel like I'm going fast, please don't hesitate to ask me questions, and I'll make sure to answer them as we go along. I'm having a famous recipe of Pepsid and spicy chili. Ooh, that sounds delicious. Doing well. I'm full from wings. Hopefully you're the same. Yeah, I am. I appreciate it. I'm doing okay. I've been better, but I've also been worse, so it's kind of hard to complain. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about a lot of really interesting stuff. Before we begin, I'm gonna go ahead and do a classic. Where am I labbing, guys? Where are we going today? What do you guys want to see? Style games. Ah, the classic. Destroyed West City. Okay. Let's see if we can get any others. Chat, do you guys want to see any particular maps? Anything that gets doubled up or gets a duplicate, I will gladly do. If not, I'll probably just default to Destroy. Do I want to lab on Destroyed West City? It's such a dour one. You know where I never lab, though? West City. No one ever mentions West City. Alright, Destroyed City it is. Ah! My bad. Fine. We'll play on this. We'll lab on this laggy map. If you guys insist. If you must insist. We'll do it. We're not here often. Might as well. Alright. So, really cool. Let's go ahead. Make sure we're going here and whatnot. Let me pull up my script and whatnot. Alright, so we might be talking about how to use assists and whatnot. And what that usually means is we're going to be talking about how assists actually play into high-level neutral, how they need to factor into your understanding of spacing, and how the speed, angle, and specific properties of an assist can actually create a lot of advantage in neutral, and most importantly, how your movement can actually impact how useful an assist is. We're also going to be talking about different properties for assists and whatnot, and it's going to be really fun. So, here, I'm going to choose this because I actually have two versions of this team. So, if you guys would like to see and whatnot. So this one uses Adult Gohan A. This one, I'm sorry, that one uses Adult Gohan B. The second one uses Adult Gohan A. These assists could not be any more diametrically opposed. As you can see, they have a very different range that they cover. They both have very different uses. They require completely different approaches in neutral. And I think in highlighting the differences between these two teams and what they're capable of, I think we can actually begin to pin down how important assists can be in neutral and how important assist choices can be and whatnot. So I think that's going to be pretty fun. And what spurred this on is that I noticed that a lot of you guys tend to, you're not really sure what to do. I see some people, for example, that use Beerus and whatnot, they'll just jump back and call an assist, kind of like a bubble. Or a lot of you guys, for example, will call an assist and then jump back like this and whatnot. We'll talk about these issues in just a moment, but realizing that a lot of people may not fully understand how to use their assists, I think it's important to go over not only how to use these assists, but how to pick assists for our team and how they can affect not only our team building choices, but how they should affect our fundamentals and our neutral, not just our pressure. So I'm going to go over this next topic. This next one is going to be basically common mistakes. Common mistakes. Ooh. Basically, a common mistake is a common mistake that I often see, as I just mentioned, are usually people will call their assist for like no reason. So press 1 in the chat if you will just panic call your assist whenever you're in neutral. You see your opponent running at you, you don't know what to do, so you run away and then panic call your assist, and then the assist hits or they get to block, but you don't end up successfully converting it. Press 1 in the chat if you guys actually have this issue, or if you've noticed that this tends to happen to you from time to time. Let's have an honest space here for this. Oh, thank you for joining us, Spiky. Nice to see you here. Caesar, first time chat. Let's hype up Spiky for joining us. That's pretty cool. 1 with strike assists. Very nice. And I think we do it because it's very fast. You know what I mean? Like, they tend to be 20 frames like Yamcha, or 25 frames around there, have good blocks done, and sometimes decent hits done and whatnot. And it could be pretty interesting to want to use them, because, you know, you're panicking. You're like, oh, I just have to call something fast, right? I'm imagining that's a problem you guys have. So pretty much everyone here so far that in the chat has had this issue. I'm very, very glad to have you guys here. I'm going to try to help you guys out with this as much as possible. Part of that applied to me, but not all of it. I'm prepared to convert most assist hits most of the time. Not from my experience, Fuzzy. That's all I'm saying. Gogeta B from full screen for no reason other than anxiety. That's another one. Calling assists that don't hit from full screen basically to accomplish nothing. Nothing beats throwing Vegito A and hoping out for the best. Well, funny enough, this will actually teach people how to use Vegito A properly, and more importantly, how to beat Vegito A as well. So hopefully it works. But also, joke's on you, because I also call my assists intentionally to get hit and still don't convert. Oof. Oof. Yeah, I feel that. All right. So that's a pretty common mistake. Another mistake that I see that is pretty big, and press 1 if you're guilty of this. This one's hyper-specific. If you tend to call your assist in neutral, but at the wrong time. So you'll do stuff like that. And your assist doesn't actually help. I've been watching your YouTube videos to learn because I just started playing the game. Oh, so you're from YouTube? I'm so grateful that you're here. And I'm grateful. Guys, if you're here from our YouTube channel, please let me know. That does encourage me and Star to kind of get off our asses, and maybe we'll start focusing on YouTube a little bit more in order to build the stream. But yeah, if you're here from YouTube, thank you for letting us know. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that you're having a good time learning the game. Everyone, let's give shout outs to Spiky. It's really cool. And if you're watching from YouTube, make sure to catch us live at twitch.tv/Weiss Training Grounds, and that way you can be part of our chat and, you know, get some one-on-one feedback. I'm here from YouTube. Nice. But yeah, so back on point, because I said we're not going to go on tangents. Basically speaking, assists are very, very important, and sometimes, especially if we're used to one assist or we're used to a particular team and we switch to another team, this one happens to me a lot. You call your assists with the timing of your old team, and then the assist just ends up whiffing completely, and you're like, wow, what do I do from here? Learn about you from Tiny Torque. Tony Torque. Let's go, Tony. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. So, this is very, very, very important stuff. I'm going to try to help you basically conquer all of these issues today in a way that makes sense, in a way that you guys find useful. And if you need any more than this video, consider subscribing to Tier 2, where you can get training. But that's a different story for now. But yeah, these are common mistakes. So just to recap what the mistakes are, generally, the biggest one is calling assists at the right time, calling assists at the wrong time, calling assists for the wrong reasons, such as anxiety, or such as, oh, thank you so much for the follow, I appreciate it. Came from Nova Zane off YouTube. Thank you so much, guys. I really, really, really appreciate it. And we're going to start uploading more content soon. But, yeah, so basically calling assists at the wrong time, calling assists for the wrong reasons are the two big ones. What are the wrong reasons exactly? Generally speaking, you don't want to call an assist in anxiety and panic, because that precludes a lot of, basically control. that you were able to take because of that assist. And because, like, even if you're successful, you may not necessarily be able to convert it a lot of the time. And worst case scenario, your opponent could be accounting for that panic assist call and then attack you at the exact same time that you wish to call it. So for example, and whatnot. For example, let's say you're adult Gohan and whatnot, and, you know, this adult Gohan's charging at me, right? This adult Gohan's charging at me, you know? Like, they call their assists. Press 1 if you also call your assist and run behind it. Shoutouts. So let's say you want to do that, right? So that's pretty cool, right? It's very easy to avoid, and it's easy to counterattack. But not if I 3H like a genius. Right? Very, very important. Oof. I'm actually not ready for the... because the timing on the recording doesn't begin immediately. Ah, messed up again. So something like that, right? So you can call an assist and run behind it. Oof, jumped over at the wrong time. You can avoid it. You can even counterattack at the same time. Oof, at the wrong time. That's actually tough. And you still control your space, and on top of that, you know, you can... It's actually hard to emulate outside of a... Because I do this all the time to my students, but it's so hard to do it when you're, like, not in the heat of battle. You know? It's very, very difficult to do. I was hoping to demonstrate this, but basically, you can essentially attack your opponent pretty easily from here. Like, you can actually really kind of fuck them up, you know? But the timing is just unusual. Yeah. It's so weird to do this outside of, like, battle, you know? There we go. We could do that. What's this thing? You can kind of land in front of... I mean, it's hard to demonstrate, but the point being is that there are ways you can actually attack this method of approach. Usually when you're actually playing somebody, because it's a little bit easier to get a beat on their timings. It's very difficult. I really underestimated how difficult it would be to do it with the recording. But basically, you know, press 1 in the chat if you've played me, you've called your assist and whatnot, thinking it would hit me, and then I just ID over your assist and whatnot, and then you get clapped on the dome because you weren't expecting me to completely avoid your assist. Press 1 in the chat if that's happened to you during training. Yeah. So it's actually really hard to do with the recording, but the point that I'm trying to demonstrate here is that there are a lot of inflexible moves that come in neutral and whatnot that you can do in neutral, and the ways that your opponent can attack them are very numerous, and it can necessarily not work out in your position, especially if you're calling assists pretty much inefficiently, which is another big issue on top of calling assists for the wrong reasons. People tend to call assists, especially if you're newer to the game. You'll tend to call an assist because you feel like you have to, or you're uncomfortable with the silence that's going on. And by silence, I mean, like, not a lot of poking going on, or your opponent's not really playing that actively, or there's not a lot of movement. It's a very slow game, so you feel the need to call your assist just to do something. Or probably the biggest reason I see people call assists, particularly DP assists, anxiety. Where your opponent's running at you, you don't know what to do, you really don't want to lose neutral, so you call an assist and kind of pray. These are kind of wrong reasons to use an assist, and I think that we can actually really take these to the next level if we're just a little bit cleaner and make better decisions and whatnot. I'm going to give you the tools to make those better decisions today. So definitely keep an eye out in the future as we go over a lot of these concepts moving forward, which is going to be pretty nice. But yeah, this brings us to the next section of our class, where we're going to review a concept that we've been talking a lot about in WTG. We've kind of taken a break, so I'm going to take this time to basically explain it. We're going to talk about Maai, M-A-A-I, It's a Japanese concept in martial arts, particularly kenjutsu, which refers to interval. In other words, it is the concept of timing. Timing that basically Maai accounts for the amount of time something takes to reach you, how much distance it covers in that time, and basically it's used colloquially to mean engagement distance in martial arts. So for example, this is 16 frames. This has faster Maai because this has more priority, is about the same, and can be made faster due to a whole host of reasons. Another thing would be this one, which is 11 frames from this distance. This will actually reach me before Kefla's 5M. This is very, very important because this means if we press 5M at the same time, I am most likely going to lose. This is what we mean by Maai. Maai refers to not just the distance something covers, so the max reach of something, but it also refers to the amount of time that it takes, and a little bit lesser known that we haven't really talked about too much, the angle something can attack from. So for example, you know, this has a lot of priority, 8 frames, you know? So if I'm right here, this attacks a very specific angle. So even though this is faster, doing this from right here doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because it's going to whip over my head, versus this, which is slower but will actually reach me. Conversely, Maai from that angle can be important as well because Kefla and whatnot can do this, which is a little bit slower than his 3H, but will beat it because it does not care about anti-air property. This is very, very, very important to keep in mind. So, to recap, Maai is a very crucial concept in martial arts in real life, so actual combat arts. It was very, very important to pretty much all martial arts, but I'm using it primarily from a kenjutsu and kendo background, and generally that's kind of what I'm going to try to stick to, because I think swordsmanship is a more analogous, out of all the martial arts, I think it's the most analogous to DBFZ, and I'll explain why someday. But basically, Maai is a very important concept in kenjutsu, martial arts in general, and even fighting games and Dragon Ball FighterZ. Now, here's the thing. How does Maai get affected by assists? Because, you know, we're talking about tip range of our pokes and whatnot. We have very powerful pokes. For example, at this range, I have a lot more powerful Maai than Adult Gohan, because while Adult Gohan can do this, I don't care. I can reach a very large distance, gain an enormous amount of reward if I want to. That's fine. If I have an assist, it's even worse, you know, because then I can, you know, extend, so on, so on, so on. And you guys get the idea. Meanwhile, Adult Gohan, he can do this, but this doesn't really hit. He doesn't have anything that control the space without jumping up, but this takes time. He can do this, which has its own advantages, but it's not exactly the same. Or as brain dead as Kefla, just simply doing, you know, this, or this, or this. What did I miss? But yeah. So, Maai is very important. Now, assists can actually also help us with Maai. So, for example, Adult Gohan, as far as assists go, even though I have so much priority here, I can call this, I can call this, and I have amazing neutral tools as Kefla, Adult Gohan has this. Now, it takes 38 frames to reach me, which is much slower than a lot of my pokes from this distance. However, it has an enormous amount of priority and an enormous amount of control. He controls the ground underneath us. And if you guys are the types of people to take notes while listening to some of my masterclasses, this would be the part where I think you should write it in all caps and then underline it. Control. Underline, 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 underline. This is going to be the most crucial concept going forward besides Maai itself, and it is a big part of Maai, which is control. In other words, even though I can do this theoretically as much as I want, you know, I can basically control the ground if I'm a solo character, I have to respect the fact that Adult Gohan has this. Similarly, he has to respect the fact that the moment he takes a step forward, you know, like if he just takes one step forward, he's in range of Adult Gohan B, which will hit on frame 30. Now, if he calls Kefla, of course, or if he calls Kefla A, of course, it's going to probably hit me before Adult Gohan, but now we're starting to see where Maai is effective. Now, if we're right here, and I'm in the air, it doesn't really matter if he calls Kefla, because Adult Gohan may get hit, because here's another thing. When I say the timing of an attack is important, I don't necessarily just mean how fast the attack can be executed, or, you know, how fast the startup of an attack is. I actually mean the literal timing in which you press the button. Because it doesn't matter if you can reach me from this distance a lot faster with Kefla, you know? If you call the assist late, like this, it doesn't matter. Because he's going to hit you every time. Every time. And it's going to beat out Kefla, even though Kefla's faster. Now, nobody realistically is ever going to call their assists that late. However, if you miscalculate a position and you call an assist at the wrong time, that assist is probably going to get stuffed and you're going to end up blocking, or worst case scenario, you get happy birthday. Press 1 in the chat if you thought that you were being clever with an assist call and then got happy birthdayed and instantly regretted being alive that day. I know I have been in that position many, 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 many times. It is very annoying. Half of my matches, damn. It really do be like that, huh? Yeah, I get you. That's why timing is extremely important. The timing in which we do things and the timing in which we call things is very important, and that's why control is incredibly important. So, from now on, I'm going to basically call you, I'm basically gonna call on you guys to remember the concept of Maai. So far, is everyone clear on that concept of Maai? Is there any questions that we have on that? Because it's going to be very important. I'm going to be referring to it a lot during this VOD. So I want to make sure we're all on the same page. Press 1 if you at the very least understand the basic concepts of Maai, as I just explained. I will practice my pressure while I wait for answers. If you guys have any questions about Maai, now would be the time to ask me. And I will do my best to answer. Wonderful. It's a lot of ones. Perfect. I like seeing the ones. Excellent. So, we can go ahead and move on from Maai because this is a very, very important concept. We're now going to move on to the meat of things. How assists affect movement. And this is going to be an introduction to the concept of spatial control. So, what exactly is spatial control? Spatial control literally refers to exactly what it sounds like. How much space you are able to control in a given position. So, if all things are equal and we're playing the exact same assists and whatnot, we essentially have the same degree of control. However, if there is an imbalance in our assists... Yo, thank you for the gift sub! I appreciate it, Fuzzy. That's really sweet of you. Alright. So, here's what we're gonna do. You know what to do, Fuzzy. Thank you so much for the gift sub. I really appreciate it. But yeah, so, going back to the concept, we do not have the same assists, which means we have a bit of a discrepancy. My assist is a lot slower, but it reaches a lot faster. Meanwhile, my opponent's assist doesn't reach anywhere near the same reach, however, is significantly faster. We have 18 versus a 30 frame assist. There is a 12 frame differential here, and that might as well be an eternity in fighting games. So, how do we use this assists? Because at this point, you're probably thinking, okay, well, why would you ever play Adult Gohan B then? Because Adult Gohan A is way better. It anti-airs and whatnot, and you know, it reaches pretty decently far and whatnot. It hits very high above the ground and whatnot, and it's super, 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 super quick, right? Well, the reason why is literally because of this. I have to be about that close to hit my opponent. This is about as close as I can get. Why is this a problem, you might ask? Well, that's why. No matter how fast it is, if I attack first with the correct timing, I'm probably going to win against this assist accidentally. This is what happens to most of your strike assists. I'm not even going to ask you to press 1 in the chat because I know that's exactly what's happening to you. I know every single person who plays a strike assist who's watching this has had that visceral reaction because you've seen that happen to you before and you hate it. And I don't blame you. But does this mean Adult Gohan A sucks? It's tempting to think so, but not necessarily. And the reason why I say that is because this assist is very good in some cases. And just because it seems like I have to be that close for it to hit doesn't necessarily mean that that is a bad thing. It just means that the way I need to move with these two assists is going to be very different. So for example, if I'm playing the team on the left, my purple team, I can extend the reach of my assist because this doesn't reach, but that does. What did you do? Well, as you can see, ooh, my stick. Right there, as you guys can see, I can make it reach because I call it at the apex of my jump and I can float back. My movement's a little bit inaccurate today. And I can actually extend the reach of my assist. How are you doing that? Very simple. Because assists are called based on the actual lateral space your opponent is on. So for example, I could be right here, and if I just jump forward even a little bit, notice how Adult Gohan appears a little bit ahead of where he appeared before. So if I do this, it doesn't reach. If I do literally this, suddenly he reaches. This is very, very important to keep in mind, because now this can affect the timing, because now, instead of calling it right when I'm about to land, the way I would maybe Beerus, like this, I call it a little bit before, and now I control the entire space in front of me. Boom, we're in. But is neutral really that simple? Because what if your opponent decides to move? And this is where we start getting into a very fun mind game. Basically, the way assists are used in neutral, you need to think of them as pokes that do not actually require you to commit to anything, and that's why they're on a cooldown. You need to think of them as a resource, but they're also, as I said, a poke. So just like Kefla doing this, notice how the thing says I'm minus 87 if I whiff this, not or minus 51 because I can do this. You know, I'm like, you know, look at this. Like the thing is going crazy. It's constantly moving, but if I call an assist, it doesn't move. And the reason why is because I can keep moving if I call my assist or not, and it doesn't matter. It's like the assist doesn't cause me to commit to anything, and this is one of the things that makes the assist mechanics in Team Fighters, particularly in Dragon Ball, so interesting, because it's essentially free plus frames, not free because it's a resource, but it's essentially plus frames that doesn't necessarily jail you into a commitment, or it's a free hit without necessarily having you to commit to a poke, which means that you can play neutral a little bit more dynamically. There's a lot more movement, there's a lot more freedom in expression in the way that you can move. All you have to do is just consider the Maai of your assist. You need to consider the time it takes for it to reach his opponent and how to extend that. And think about control. So, you might be wondering, what exactly is the value of Adult Gohan? Well, look at where Adult Gohan is striking. he's striking there specifically because he's attacking zone 2. What this means is that I can literally dash in, extend the reach, and now I am controlling something. I am essentially controlling the spot where Kefla's key blasting, which coincidentally is the single most important spot in the game. You might be wondering, well, Ken, why is that the most important part of the... Why is that so important? Because if I'm in this spot, right? If I'm here, I can only really hit you with my key blasts. I can only really hit you with this. I can only really do this. This doesn't reach without me dashing. This doesn't reach. This doesn't reach. This reaches, but takes too much time. I really can't do a whole lot here. But if I'm right here, that reaches. That reaches. This reaches. This almost reaches. A short dash from here will make this reach. This is even faster now. It's 18 frames versus the 23 over here. So this is even harder to avoid now. This controls an even tighter angle and may actually even hit you if you're close enough. This is very, very dangerous. Everything she does here is so much more threatening than if I actually remain full screen. And because Adult Gohan controls this area, we can now start seeing some strategic opportunities that come here. So, for example, the other opponent is a Kefla. Kefla probably wants to be here too. So if Kefla does this, you know, like, hey, I want to come into zone 2, right? And hang out here so she can threaten me. She literally can't. Wow, my timings are so off. Because now I have something controlling it there. But you might be wondering, well, couldn't she JS? Or, you know, maybe she could, like, float or whatnot. Yeah, she could, which is one of the reasons why flexible movement patterns, such as floating and short hops, are so powerful. Because they let you read a situation and escape the situation that you know your opponent can control. So, let's say Kefla decides to, you know, short hop and do this, right? That's pretty... Or, I'm sorry, she decides to float back. Like, let's say she does this, right? This is actually a pretty powerful movement pattern. Oh my god. You know what? Fuck this. Sorry. Probably shouldn't be cursing on YouTube, but whatever. I can't move today. I can't move today. Sorry, guys. It seems like whenever I want to do something, I just can't do it. So let's say Kefla wants to do that, right? Notice how I have a sphere of control now. She can't land there safely, and notice how she had to land there. She's minus 15 because of that backdash. I'm plus 15. So if I wanted to, even if she avoids this, I could probably... I did it a little bit preemptively, but I can actually probably attack this without having to move. She's the one that has to essentially commit to dancing around the option when I have complete control over the ground. That's very, 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 very important. So what would that look like from the other perspective? What if instead of Adult Gohan B, we use Adult Gohan A? Well, notice how this method doesn't really work anymore. Even if I do this, what I was doing before, it still doesn't quite reach. Now, I need to actually move more aggressively. What this means is I need to start taking more active risks. So, getting in closer. Notice how the movement feels a lot more different. Like, notice how I'm in zone 2, but notice how I'm IDing more. I'm coming in a little bit closer than I probably should as a character, but look how I essentially have to move. Do you guys see the difference between the way I'm moving with Adult Gohan A than the way I would move with Adult Gohan B? See? Look how much closer I have to be. And now, if my opponent is also aggressing on me, like let's say she wants to come in, like that, right? That's how I would use that assist. That assist gives me a lot of control. This is what we call a defensive assist. Or, you know, the Vegito A's, the bubbles, and whatnot. We'll talk about those and classes of assists probably in a different class. But basically, notice how different these positions are. And all I had to do was change my assist, and my entire style of movement had to change. And the reason why is because me doing this literally gives me nothing. I'm just wasting an important resource. It's not hitting anything. But if I'm playing a little bit closer and kind of, you know, playing a little bit more defensively, or if I notice my opponent's coming in, I can use that assist essentially a little bit better as a form of control to keep my opponent essentially near me. Now, which one of these assists are better? Well, it depends. You can see this area of control much more naturally with Beerus, because this is the concept that makes him work. So he can control full screen like this, right? And notice how this hits fairly quickly, right? But notice how if I do this, I can control the grounds. Notice how he basically reaches as far as Adult Gohan. Now I can protect. So with Beerus, I can essentially, you know, do this and kind of come in a little bit naturally and a little bit more easily without having to... I'm not really short hopping. There we go. That's what I wanted to do. And then we can have some fun, right? But if I have Adult Gohan B, Beerus actually has a lot more control. Because now you might want to dash block against him, and notice how Adult Gohan just throws out a wall that you have to deal with. And that wall buys, because it lasts a long time, lets Beerus kind of do some shenanigans. This is what I truly refer to when I say synergy. This is synergy. Both of these assists work, and both of them require different things from my Beerus. Both of them let me control different things, because now I can do this and then step in and control, because I can use Adult Gohan as a wall, I can use Adult Gohan as a shield to set stuff up, which gives me some fun stuff like that, you know? If I converted that, you get some fun shenanigans. And this is very, very important to keep in mind, which is why choosing your assists is incredibly, incredibly important. And it also has a lot to do with the conditions that you're playing in. So for example, if you've ever wondered why C assists are so popular, if you've ever seen somebody be like, man, why would anyone play Vegito C assist instead of you know, his A assist, or why would you play Cell C or anything like that? The answer is very simple. Delay-based netcode. They are assists with a lot of priority. They control pretty much the entire screen. They can sometimes track to the opponent, and it makes movement a lot easier, because as long as you have it, you essentially have a great degree of control. But notice how quickly it falls apart when you're offline, because if you call a C assist and it whiffs, you're very vulnerable for a long time. You don't have that thing to protect you, and offline, people can actually move reactively, which lets them avoid these assists and makes neutral a little bit more dynamic. But these assists become more powerful the less you're able to move. Something to keep in mind. Damn, barrier assists have nothing on your bubble of control there. This all assumes you've had tempo at the start of any of this in the first place, right? No. Tempo is basically a way of understanding of who has priority, or if you are a fencer who has right of way. In other words, you literally cannot physically lunge if you just lunged until you fully recover from the first lunge. If you lunged and it missed, you probably have some, depending on your degree of commitment, some leeway on how to defend yourself and how to get out. But chances are your opponent now has the ability to attack you, and probably for free, depending on your level of commitment. So, in that regard, that's what tempo is. With assists, tempo's not necessarily important, and that's why we choose Maai. Because Maai depends on a lot of factors, including the speed of the assist. So, would you need tempo for Adult Gohan A or Adult Gohan B? Yes. Would you need it for Adult Gohan A? Probably not. You just need to make sure you have enough time to call it. and of course that it would hit. That's usually the single most important part of calling an assist, which is why it's very important to know these things. So you might be wondering, well, that's all great and dandy. How do I apply this to my team? Well, I'm going to give you guys a couple of, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a couple of ways that you guys can figure out what works for your particular teams and whatnot. And you know what? Just for that, I might even go ahead and suggest to you guys things that I can do. I will play and lab your teams. If you guys are subscribers and you guys want me to take a look at your teams, and if you guys are not happy with your assists, let me know, and we'll go ahead and see if we can find something. And I will show you how I find the ways to move with these particular assists, and how these assists might actually affect your neutral, and how to properly use them. I won't be here for too long doing this, but if you want me to go ahead and try your team and let you know what I think, and also let you know how you can move with this team most effectively, go ahead and post it in the chat right now, and I will select the most interesting ones. And of course, if you guys are subscribers, you have priority. So let's see. Gogeta 4, Bluegeta A, fucking basically. Let's see if we can get anything else. I want to see some interesting teams, guys. Show me some stuff. Let's see. I think my sub ran out, but Kefla, Gogeta 4, Zamas. A lot of Kefla, Gogeta 4. It's interesting. I think my sub ran out. Well, we should take care of that. Would anyone like to gift Raiden a sub? I must be coming off the timing. I call them because so often I try to move forward, call an assist to cement my position and control the space, but it doesn't matter because the assist just gets hit. That is a problem with the timing, yes. If that happens to you, that is usually a problem with your timing of the assist call, because you're probably doing it improperly, and generally speaking, I'll show you how to do that. I'll start with this. We were on Destroy It with West City. Yeah, but phone is very annoying to sub on mobile. I get you. I have actually heard that it's pretty annoying to sub on mobile. Oh, that's sweet. Yo, and it's Spiky too. Wow, what a fucking G. Thank you, Spiky. So, first of all, already there's a problem with this team. You control literally the same amount of space with both of your assists. You generally want to avoid this, even if you're doubling up on a strike assist. This is usually not very good. Which means that they both require the same amount of movement and control, but slightly different. The reason why you're probably getting hit is because the way Vegeta hits is very unusual. So, for example, notice how he kind of... Why not Vegeta A? Very simple. The assist is strong, but it takes a very long time. This is very, 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 very problematic. Because the biggest thing that you can do, the biggest advantage of proponents of this, is you can do stuff like that. And also, Base Coup has some shenanigans where he can do stuff like... Oops, my bad. Like, you can time that in a way that throws them back into the assist. My god, that's actually annoying to time. Maybe you have to do it quick? Or maybe it's like... There we go. Cool. Yeah, so you can do some shenanigans there where you can call the assist at the same time as you grab, because the grab takes about as much time, I think, as the actual assist call does. So you can do stuff like... You can be inside of the hitbox of Big Bang Attack for some protection, but it's not very effective. I agree. It is not very effective, and not only that, the angle that it controls, while powerful, is also very easy to kind of disrespect. It's very easy to navigate, and you can control the ground with it. So, by all means, it's not a bad assist. However, it can take so much time that it's almost not worth it. Meanwhile, this controls a certain degree of space. However, this can be used to extend your reach. So you could do stuff like... and still convert. So this is a neat pin option. But generally speaking, if you're using strike assists, you want to remain as close to the ground as possible. So a lot of short hops, a lot of super jump IEDs, like this movement pattern that you see me doing. This is generally where you want to be, controlling your space. And if you're going to retreat, make sure your opponent's actually following you. But even if you use this assist in that way, there's another problem with this assist, which is how it hits. Because as you can see, this sucks. This actually really sucks. Because you have to basically delay call it, and the confirm is quite awkward. Versus something like this, where you can 2M, you can 5M, you can do whatever you want. You know, you can interrupt it, so you can pretty much have full flexibility on how to hit the opponent here, and do whatever you want, in any manner you want. But this assist is quite limited depending on when you call it. So here, right, the best I can hope for is this. This is generally what we mean when we usually say this is a bad assist. While I think that it's a little bit reductive to call things good or bad, I prefer using effective or less effective or ineffective at worst. I mean, you know, obviously I have, you know, a pretty charged vocabulary, but I'm trying to kind of roll that back a little bit. I think it's more helpful to view assists as effective or ineffective. I do not think that this team is very effective. And already off the bat, even though you control the same amount of space, you have another problem. You cannot move the same way with these assists. Because you have to move at a much slower pace or tempo, basically, to use this assist. Because this assist kind of just plants itself, where this is very fast, which means you need to move a little bit quicker because the hit stun is not as large. And because this is slower by 8 frames, you will feel that 8 frames in the effectiveness of your assists. That is an example of how this can be a little bit more difficult for you guys. So, overall, I don't think this team is very effective. Now, another problem is the team moves the exact same way, regardless on who's on point. Now, this is a much better assist, in my opinion, than Vegeta, because I can 2M here, you know? So I can do... And, of course, it goes to assists. So, you know, it goes to assists, but the general methodology of using it is pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same. Where you have to make big sweeping commitments, you have to move in, you have to get close to your opponent, and you have to be comfortable in rush down position. Not only that, but because, and just like in real life, if you are very fast but you don't have a lot of reach and whatnot, your Maai, generally speaking, is going to have to be a little bit closer to your opponent. You can afford to be a little bit closer to the opponent because you can obviously get in there a lot faster and whatnot, and you can get in and out. But if the distance is too great, even if you're quick, it might take too much time for that attack to reach you. For example, look how slow that is versus that. So Gogeta can afford to hang out back here because he will reach you and it will be quick. But something like Vegeta might not. Even the EX move is 3 flames slower. And it does not yield that reward. because you can only convert it by continuing off the Rekka. And the reward... I mean, obviously, you can do a better route. Might not necessarily be as high as something that whiffs Spark. So, there's a little bit of a discrepancy here. That is why I Super Dash so much. Super Dash, not a wise decision. Super Dash is not neutral. Super Dash is good to punish things in neutral because it tracks and immediately allows you to follow up on any of your opponent's mistakes, if you're wondering for what Super Dash was for. It's also very, very, very good for escaping a particular angle very quickly if your opponent has a particular idea that you can counter, or if they call something that you want to be able to disrespect. So, for example, if I'm playing here and I notice that Blue Goku 2Ms me, I'm fucking Super Dashing him. Because there's no way I would be able to get the tempo enough to land and then attack him. It's much easier to just Super Dash instead. So, with that being said, you guys are now probably starting to see the limitations of this team, right? Like, press 1 in the chat if you were not really sure how this team was limited, and now you can really see it. I know that's kind of leading, but, you know, I feel the limitations when playing this team. Right, I mean, for covering the ground with Blue Vegeta on point, i.e. to confirm an assist, since he doesn't have many ways to cover the ground quickly enough. Yes, he does. The problem there is your timing. You need to get, like, if you're playing Blue Vegeta, you need to be very, very comfortable, or at least this particular configuration, Blue Vegeta with Strike Assist, you need to be very comfortable playing your ranges around here. Like, this area right here, you need to be much closer to your opponent than you think you do. Now, the thing about Vegeta is that he's very good at egresses, which means that he can, you know, jump JS. This is very hard to deal with. He can deal with people trying to jump away from him. But this is generally his shtick. This is what he's trying to do. You know what I mean? He's not necessarily the strongest character. And if you're constantly playing over here and making up the deficit with Super Dash, that is a good way to die. Now, you do have 5H, which has a lot of priority. This is one of your strongest pokes, but you need to be comfortable being within this range and playing neutral from this range, which means that the neutral that you're going to play is usually going to be a lot more intense and a lot faster, and you are at a disadvantage against characters like pretty much the entire team on the right. You are at a severe disadvantage on characters that are much better at controlling that distance than you are, and characters that are better at keeping you away from this distance. So not only is he competing with Blue Goku at this range, but if I were to be here, Blue Goku has this. And notice where Blue Goku's JS here hits. And not only that, but you also can't keep Blue Goku out because, you know, this. You're so close to him, you're going to get shouldered. Cool link. But look at that. I haven't even completed the combo, and we're already at 4.2k. And I haven't even started looping. You're dead. You are omega dead. What do you mean when you say priority? So this game actually does have a priority system. For example, and this might blow your mind, okay? We're probably all afraid of lab code, right? I'm going to use this moment to demonstrate priority, as I do think that it's actually relevant to neutral, and it's something that you do have to keep in mind. But every move in this game has a certain classification. So, for example, we're all afraid of lab code, right? Like, let's be honest, she's crazy, probably the best character in the game, blah, 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 whatever. That's insane, right? That's 23 frames. Now watch this, right? I just lose, right? There's no way I can win. Unless I stop it before it becomes active. But what happens if I do this? Ooh, my bad. Oh. It's hitting me before I become active. There we go. If I become active beforehand, she's not winning. Who has a... Let me demonstrate this with... Where is he? Gohan, because Adult Gohan becomes active a lot faster. It's hard, and I struggle with that a lot. Yes, but that is something that you must do if this is a character that you really want to play and commit to. But yeah, as for priority, Gohan always wins. It has nothing to do with Hurtbox. As you can see, I can actually hit her late. Because I could do... Oop, got hit. Can't even 3H. Oh, because 3H is a medium. That's why. That's one of the reasons why 2H works. This actually happens with every Lariat. Every Lariat is categorized as a medium. Heavies have priorities over mediums, so if they become active at the same time, instead of clashing, for example, instead of clashing the way... This is one of the reasons why, like, for example, Cell's perfect attack actually clashes with Lab Coat, because they have the same amount of priority, and it's a disjointed hitbox on both cases, which is why you end up clashing. But 2H always wins, even though perfect attack loses. Like, Cell can 2H her Lariat, Cell cannot perfect attack her Lariat, despite the fact that perfect attack is a way, way better anti-air than 2H most of the time. Like, as you can see, like, I can hit her late. Like, I am flat out interrupting her. Like, I'm just saying no. Like, that time before I became active. See what I mean? Very powerful. And that's how priority works. So basically, if you're in a situation where you know what your opponent's going to do, for example, if I know Labcoat's going to do something stupid, I might charge forward with my heavy instead of trying to get cute and then do, like, you know, dash in medium or, you know, back fist or anything like that. No, I'm just going to... I might control you with my heavy. But yeah. Anyway, back to the point. So... Vegeta has to play his ranges a lot closer, which makes it very scary to play against characters like Labco or characters that don't really care much for Ki Blasts. Yeah, a lot of priority. So, different characters have different Maai, and your assists affect your Maai. So, here, believe it or not, if you're a character that likes to play at this range a lot, in order to win neutral, strike assists are very important, because they have an enormous amount of priority. They can get in really quickly. They're very fast. You have something like, you know, like Gogeta that goes through assists, and they complement your Ki Blast game, because you can do that. You can get in, use the strike assist to cover the distance, keep them there long enough to come in with tempo, and be able to attack like this. However, this is not necessarily ideal on teams that have longer ranges and teams that play at longer ranges. So, for example, this team does not necessarily care if Vegeta's there, because this team has ways of keeping him out and ways of attacking angles he can't really, and attacking with different times that he can't. And if push comes to shove, Labcoat just pretty much dominates Vegeta at those ranges. So the Vegeta player essentially needs to play out of their fucking mind in order to be able to compete at these ranges. Now, does this mean you're always going to be at these ranges? No. Sometimes you have to think about how you're going to enter those ranges very carefully, which is a whole different conversation, whole different level of strategy that we'll be going over in the future. Don't get me wrong. I'll eventually teach it. We'll get there. Don't worry. Make sure to like, subscribe if you're on YouTube, and click that bell icon so that way you can continue following us, and make sure to subscribe on Twitch if you want to get access to our community and get access to me, so that way you get all of this juicy goodness. But basically speaking, Vegeta's very, very, very difficult. If I were you, I would play assists that actually enable him to get in, because here's the problem. Getting into this, Vegeta might have a lot of priority because he does have with 5H, so he does have something that he can easily fight back with. But the problem is, how does he get there? If he has 2 short-range assists. He has to basically be very, very aggressive and very careful in order to get in, and this is where he begins to struggle. So, if you are going to play a character like Blue Vegeta, while I don't necessarily think he needs a neutral assist, and I don't want Blue Vegeta players to think that I'm saying he has bad neutral, I'm saying that having that much control over the ground can basically give him easy access to the ranges where he's at his most effective. You want to enable him, basically. And that's an example of, back to the theme here, of how your assist choices can greatly affect a character's neutral and your movement and the ranges that you need to stand at. Because if I have a longer range assist, for example, if I have, let's say, Kefla, you know, instead of Gohan. Like if I have Kefla, things are a little bit easier. Now, if I'm at this range, I have this, but I also have this. And just like before, in the earlier examples when we were discussing the Gohans with Kefla A and having a long-range assist, this is very important because this gives me control over the ground. It is in my opponent's best interest, and I want you to highlight this if you guys are writing this down. It is in my opponent's best interest to move. This is the hierarchy of things. If you see an assist, avoid. If you can't avoid, reflect. If you can't reflect, block. That's the hierarchy. Number 1 instinct should be to move. If you end up in a position where you don't want to move, and if you don't want to move because you have a positional advantage and you don't want to give it up, and you see that your opponent is basically kind of, you know, playing around, and you want to make sure you want to stay there because you want to maintain your threat, reflect it. But that is the hierarchy of things. 9 times out of 10, you want to move. Because you could do this, right? And sure, you can, you know, you can reflect, but here's the problem, right? Notice how she's still plus. I'm wrong. I'm So I could do this. This is very powerful. But that's plus 23. No matter what, though, I'm plus. So what if she decides to... She still kind of gets in. There's not really a whole lot I can do here. I can reflect again, but now I've just opened myself up to a mind game. Because now she can do... Right? That's a very dangerous mind game. Because now... Ooh, called the wrong assist. Because now she can cross up, basically. So if I set the recording to block, right? If that was a real person, she could be timing my reflect timing. If I'm not careful and I reflect again, she could grab. She can hit me with her standing low. You know, this is very, 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 very dangerous. Just because I reflected the assist would not be as clean of a situation as if I just did this. Oop, mistimed it. See how I just easily avoid things? I can call my assistant any direction. I short hop so I have the access to my other, you know, my other moves. I can back, I can forward, I can key blast to halt my momentum. I can call my assist. Like, I have a lot more options if I just short hop over it. Or if I IED over it, but I prefer to short hop because short hop is a bit more flexible. But yeah, that's a lot better than just sitting there and reflecting it. Because if I just sit there and reflect it, I'm vulnerable to all sorts of things. And I basically give 21 space, which you don't want to do. I feel very much Kefla A is super helpful for my Blue Vegeta on my team. I feel like I can't afford to let her die. I'd rather sacrifice either Blue Vegeta or Bardock than risk bringing her in sometimes. You should bring her in, but at the same time, you have another limitation. For example, Kefla is at her most comfortable. Kefla is at her most comfortable here. She wants to be able to get in, and she can play quickly. You know, she's not bad at it. But these assists do very little for her. They are very good to an extent. They're good for her pressure. They're good for when she wants to extend stuff. You know, she's good for, you know, it's good for stuff like that. They are good assists. Doubling up on them is generally a bad idea because you are basically forcing your character to play at very particular ranges now. Kefla, your Kefla needs to play a lot closer than normal, which is still fine, but it is a lot riskier than a Kefla who can afford, because here's a beautiful thing about Kefla. Every range she's at, she's a threat. So she's a threat here, she's a threat here. She's obviously more of a threat the closer that she is, but if she doesn't want to have to take that risk, she can just hang back and then come into that risk on her own terms without having to worry about being forced to play there. Kefla begins to weaken when you force her to play at certain ranges, which is essentially what's happening when you use two Lariat assists. In other words, Fuzzy, Saber, your teams are unbalanced. Now, a lot of teams will make those trade-offs. That's not necessarily a bad thing. However, they are inherently a lot weaker than more balanced teams or teams that are oriented in fluctuating positions where every character can appropriately cover each other's weaknesses in different ranges. For example, obviously, I can't have a neutral video without talking about this team. Now, do I think that this team is a neutral monster? No. But do I think that this team highlights a lot of things that we can talk about? Yes, because we're going to talk about a lot of the concepts now that we've spoken about, and now you're going to see how this team makes it easy. Is this the only team like this? No. Is this the best team in neutral? No. If you watch Yasha play this team, if you watch Walla play this team, the thing that stands out to me is I still see extremely high-level movement. Like, it is not free neutral. However, it does illustrate how easily it does a lot of the things that we're talking about compared to some other teams. For example, if we're talking about Maai, this team controls an absolute shit ton. It controls the ground. It even controls jumping distance. See? That is really powerful. However, is it unbeatable? No. What do you mean? Well, look at the issue here. It's only plus 20 full screen. Up close, it's plus 22. That is really not a lot of block stun. Even if you block it. Which means, if you have ever played TNA, you understand how risky it is to approach here. The big thing that's controlling the opponent is the fact that Gogeta can do this. Oh, thank you so much. I think someone else followed. I don't get my alerts like I used to. So if I don't call out your name, I'm still working on my setup. My setup is still a little bit shaky, so I appreciate it. But thank you so much to anyone who is following and subscribing. I really, really appreciate you guys. Now, here's the thing. Gogeta also has the ability, because this also controls a lot. It gives you the protective control of the bubble, but it also has a blast hitbox that hits in front of it with a lot of hit stun and a pretty decent amount of block stun, which lets Gogeta do a lot of things. So now Gogeta is very flexible. Gogeta can come in and still protect himself, or Gogeta can move the way I normally would with Adult Gohan and use 17A in a very similar way. That's very, very, very powerful, because this means that this team has an enormous amount of space control. And what's very important is that this control extends regardless of the configuration the team is on. This team is a very neutral-focused team. This is like if you're playing an RPG and then move all of your sliders all the way to the movement section. So if you have a lot of movement and whatnot, like this is when you max out your movement stats in exchange for pressure stats. What do I mean by that? Well, the weakness with this team is obviously the pressure is not the best. You effectively have to 50-50 your opponent and play a lot of very risky mind games and bank on the fact that that you will delete your opponent if they're wrong, but every character in this game has high damage and the team begins to gradually weaken depending on how you use it. So for example, 17 has to, you know, and then he can, I don't remember what his fake low is. I don't remember. Yeah, something like that, you know. Like 17 stuff is pretty fake and whatnot. His jab is not the strongest. He spaces himself out, while Yamcha can just... You know? And that's kind of a problem. So you can kind of see where it's like, okay, so this is pretty interesting, you know? Like Yasha's team focuses very heavily on neutral, and that honestly suits him as a player. He's a very bait and punish, defensively oriented player that plays teams that generally control a lot of space because it accents his strongest tools as a player. He has some of the finest neutral in the world, and this team is all the more deadly for it. And it maximizes his reward in neutral. It's all right because he has a 50-50. He has some cute stuff that he can do in pressure, but if it doesn't work, he's just going to back off in neutral, and you're going to have to play his game. You have to play neutral with him, and he's probably going to win because his neutral is incredible. So that's an example of how he uses a team and a team's might, whether he does it consciously or not. That's how he uses a team's might effectively to complement him as a player. And that's kind of what we can take away from teams like his. That doesn't mean we should play his team, but that means that we should play teams that complement what we want to do. So, for example, my team controls space well enough in every configuration, but my team is very pressure-oriented. You do not want to lose neutral against my team. If you lose neutral against my team, it's GG's. Like, the best way to avoid my team is, or the best way to deal with my team, the Blue Ku Kefla Beerus, well, you know, it's not going to move as well as Yasha's, but it's going to move decently enough. And if I catch you with any one of my characters, it's going to be a bad time. So, generally speaking, the best way is probably play this team and try to out-neutral me. That's pretty much the best strategy. But it's neither here nor there. Let's go ahead and take a look at... yeah. But that's an example of how we can better create teams in order to essentially suit us as players, and how we can pick our teams and our assists choices based on our needs in neutral. All right. Do we have any other teams that we want to take a look at before we move on? Anyone else want to give a try? I would love to give a try. If you are in the chat and you don't normally speak and whatnot, I would love to give your team a try if you're not shy enough. I would love to go ahead and get some new people, get some new folks in here if you haven't. But if not, don't let that discourage you from sharing your team, and I'll go ahead and take a look. Goku Black, Lab Coat Vegito, very strong. Kefla A, Videl A, TNC. I like that. is actually going to be pretty interesting. Do we have to be subbed? No, but subs do get priority. But if you're not subbed, please go ahead and suggest all the same. But Goku Black Lab Coat Vegeta, I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. This one is a very good teachable moment. So this is a very good example of something that's very interesting that we talked about. This sorts of assists are very, very good, especially if you're a beginner or, you know, you're just starting to come into an intermediate and you play online exclusively. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I'm not saying that, oh, you're an online warrior, win a major, stupid. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that these kinds of assists are really effective if you are in an online environment, because as you can see, there's an enormous amount of hits done. And that's very important because you're going to be spending a lot of your time running away. And then once you get the hit, you can go ahead, confirm. Which is very, very important. And of course, there's a lot of blocks done as well. You know. So you can be like, oh, they're blocking. You can, oop, my bad. Run up. Oh, they're blocking. Run up. Take your turn. And keep going. So overall, pretty effective strategy if you're newer to the game. However, you also have to consider something very important. Videl, very, very strong. Here, she's kind of balanced. If you're going to play this assist, I would almost suggest playing her point. But there's a couple of issues, right? The biggest issue is that Kefla is not really enabled by this assist. It doesn't really complement her neutral in a way because it doesn't give her a lot of control. It does give her more than average. Like, it's not the worst assist in the world. However, the problem is that the cooldown, right, is so extreme that you end up in a very, very, very difficult situation if your opponent has competent movement or accidentally avoids it. Watch. You see that molasses-like cooldown? They were called at the exact same time, by the way. This is a problem. Because now your control better pay off. Because if it doesn't pay off, you are actually very, very, very vulnerable. When you don't have an assist, your character, no matter what character it is, even if it's Gogeta Blue, even if it's Lab Coat, even Lab Coat, guys, is vulnerable without assists. You might be wondering, when is Lab Coat ever vulnerable? Well, Lab Coat is a pain in the ass. There's no doubt about that. I don't want people to think that I'm saying that she's bad or anything. But Lab Coat with an assist is infinitely worse than Lab Coat by herself. I use Roshi A, but seeing as you don't have him, can you use SSJ Goku, Krillin A, Piccolo A? I'll consider it, because there might be educational value in there. But the point being is that right here, right? This is not a whole lot of control, because this is brutally slow. Like, this is almost like... This is brutal, right? And that's kind of the problem. When you have a one-shot use like that, you have to really consider something very important. Is it worth the cooldown? And the answer is usually no. Because even on hit, here's the worst case scenario. Let's say you're playing in a lot of lag, you get the hit, but accidentally drop the C assist confirm. Now you don't have that assist for another very long time, and your opponent just teched out of a combo. What if your opponent reflects it? And then reflects you, and then jumps out. Or, what if you are playing, for example, a Gogeta 4, you call your C assist, and then Gogeta lariats right through it, hits you, and now you're getting hit, and waiting for that assist to come back. That's kind of where you will begin to suffer. So if you're going to play this team... This is why I would suggest TNA. So TNA offers the exact same amount of control. It controls the ground, So the entire ground is essentially off limits to the opponent. And I'm actually curious. I'm actually curious about something. Ah. Yikes. That's not good. Because if that exact same movement pattern happens here... Notice how much more control you have. So for example, what if I make that a super jump ID back? Right? Okay, cool. That reaches. Ah, because it tracks the moment she leaves. But not if I do that. Ooh. So if she jumps right as the assist is called... And then this happens. That assist is wasted because we remember earlier, right? We have two very important concepts. Timing. How long something takes to start up, but also the timing in which we press the button here. That's important. Because here's the thing, right? If we do the exact same movement pattern with TNA and call it at the exact same time, we control that space. They have to block it or jump higher, which gives us a positional advantage. This is why I would say TNA, while there are obvious trade-offs, I'm not going to pretend like they don't exist. I'm not going to go, C assists bad, guys. Don't use C assists. This is the advantage of an A assist. And even the trade-offs that you get from the C assist, the A assist is so much more flexible and works in more common situations. And most importantly, if you get better in calling the A assist, that is something that will grow with you in time. Because the problem with C assists is eventually you're going to get better. Especially if you're subscribed to WTG. You're going to get a lot better. But as you get better, you're going to start feeling like you're being held back by your assists. This, at the very least, the assist will grow with you. And you will not see any significant fall off in the effectiveness of this assist for quite some time. This assist works at high level. Kane plays TN. Keep that in mind. So that would be my recommendation. Spiky. Nope, not going down that rabbit hole. Anytime. I'm glad I could help. Alright, let's see. SSJ Goku B, Krillin A, Piccolo A. Walk me through the logic of this team. Nah, I'm tired. Like, listen, I was labbing her combos with Star today, and even Star was like, dude, there's a reason I stopped playing her. Like, we're actually considering dropping Fidel. Like, I actually had Star say to me, I'm a Yamcha player now. Like, yeah, Vidal's new combos are fucking yikes. They are not good. I should steal No Kami's idea and do a... I should steal No Kami's idea and do why nobody plays these characters, but instead being like, why Ken doesn't like these characters. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the jab. So that's the problem with this team, is that I am not really going to do a team review, but I'm going to show you exactly how this team is limited. So this team has really, really good space control. Really good space control, you know? We can go ahead and put everything back on quick recovery. So, you know, like, that's pretty cool and all. You have a wide degree of space control. The problem is that you can't really control the trajectory of the rocks. And it seems to be the same regardless of where you're standing. But the difference is one of the rocks will fall closer to the opponent. Yo, Neo Judai, thank you for the party. I appreciate you so much. But yeah, you end up in a situation where you're not really controlling a whole lot. Now, this assist is a fucking meme. Don't get me wrong. Because if Krillin moves an inch or super dash, this is going to win. But here's where the problems come in. That's only 17 frames of block stun. Which means, thank you so much. I appreciate you, Neo Judai. I really do. But you're going to have a problem here. Also, thank you guys for coming from Neo Jedi. My name is Ken. I teach high-level fighters, and today we're talking about assists and how they help in neutral. So, right here, the team does have kind of a trade-off, but, you know, you can use this to great effect. Very niche assist. This assist you would want to use to control a certain degree of space. However, your characters are not really in a position to take advantage of it, because you don't have command grabs. This assist is a command grabs friend, basically. Like, if I were Bluku, this would be done. So, overall, while I don't feel this team is very balanced, because it's lacking a true, in my opinion, proper point, and you have probably the most valuable assist on point, if I'm honest, because, like, while these assists are, like, fun and whatnot, once you fight an opponent that's past the gimmicks and whatnot, they can be rather hard to use, but this is tried and true. This will always be here for you, you know? Like SSJ Goku will never let you down, you know? He's the best around. Nothing's ever going to keep him down. So, generally speaking, I would probably play Bluku with that team. But most importantly, that team does have a lot of flexibility. It has a lot of room to, float around. You have a lot of flexibility in how you can play, and it can be hard to avoid things. But once it's avoided and whatnot, it can be very, very tricky. And characters that don't care about these projectiles, you're gonna struggle against them. Like, there are a lot of characters that don't necessarily care about assists nowadays. You know, you have the Gogeta Force, but like, think of the meta. Like, Gogeta Blue, for example, is gonna beam right through your assists. Gogeta Blue is, gonna find ways to avoid them. Lab Coat, Lab Coat is just gonna eat Piccolo A alive. You have Vegito, who's just gonna control that space significantly more effectively than you will. It would be a struggle bus. Even, ironically, Bluku would just not care. Kefla would not care about your team as well. I forget, are the rocks considered a Ki Blast? Shit, now I have to lab. God damn it, now I have to lab something. I'm sorry. I'll do a couple more teams, like maybe one last one, if anyone wants to mention it. But I need to test something while we do this. I need to know if Kefla's... I know I could do this on my own time, but I feel like you guys would be pretty interested. Does Kefla's 214H go through Krillin A? Probably not, right? Probably not, right? I mean... Okay. I think I did this wrong. She would have to... And still hit her. That's what's really funny. I can't tell if, like... Okay. Alright, cool. There we go. So, Rock can interrupt it. But as we saw, not very consistently. Not very consistently. Meanwhile, that's always going to win. So, yeah. I mean, at least it beats that, but, Oh, didn't mean to go all the way back to the beginning. But, yeah, I'll do one last team, guys. What team do you guys want to see? And by the way, as mentioned, if you guys are here from Neo Jedi stream, thank you so much for joining me. I normally teach high-level fighters, usually around this time and whatnot. We do master classes. Make sure to join me tomorrow if you're interested, because tomorrow I will be doing a VOD review at around this time of my co-host and my best friend Star, who will be playing Unwanted tomorrow. So you can catch his set, and if you can't, you can catch our review of it tomorrow as I take notes and stuff to give him for training. And he will be at UFA on Saturday, so definitely keep that in mind. But yeah, if you guys are here, you know, thank you so much, and consider following and watching us. We would love to have you guys. Do we have any other teams that we want to go ahead and take a look at in terms of how assist usage can affect the movement? If no one else has a team, I'll put forth my team. I feel like I've already gone over your team. I guess I could talk about what makes Beerus A war crime. I can do that. Okay. Oh. I'm surprised Dimensional hasn't put forward his team. So, in this position, pretty good. This team is actually extremely well balanced because you have the war crime known as Beerus A. So what makes Beerus A really, really, really stupid? Beerus A has an enormous amount of priority on the ground. This is one of the reasons why, in my opinion, it is one of, if not honestly, the best assist in the game. It has an enormous amount of hit stun, but most importantly, even though the orbs are super dashable, the kick is not. For example, if I were to set everything to, you know, super dash, guard cancel. Yeah. And the kick has a lot of hit stun. So, and if you call it from here, I can still 2H. And, as you guys may have noticed, you know, the assist, obviously, controls an enormous amount of space. But watch what happens if my opponent's jumping around it, you know? Right? Notice how that caught UI Goku for a second, jumping over me. I am lucky that I did not change the way I was blocking at the time, because that would have been nasty. Beerus bounces off the walls, and the walls obviously change when you move closer to your opponent. So if you move close while Beerus is kicking the orbs will bounce off the walls and hit sometimes behind the point. And it has a lot of hit stun. So definitely something to think about. Now, like, this assist offers an enormous amount of space control. So basically, here, I'm controlling the jump height, as you can see, the orb that disappears. So this offers an enormous amount of protection, and most importantly, it is very fast. It is 19 frames. It is as fast as Yamcha, has a lot of block stun and a lot of hit stun. Now you might be wondering, okay, well, you know, you can't mix with it. Oh, 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 oh. Can't I? Oh, but what if you guard cancel reflect? Can't I? Oops. Ooh, does that not shoestring? Might not. It might not. The low might not shoestring. So if the low doesn't shoestring... There we go. That does. Yeah, so basically, this assist offers an enormous amount of control. Generally speaking, it is going to be one of the most valuable assists on your team. It is also effective for dealing with your opponent's assists, as the difference in time, and that's another thing that makes it very, very difficult. Notice how it's 51 frames. It's slower than Kefla from full screen, but it's one of the fastest assists in the game, point blank. This means that it controls different points of space at different times, which means that there are different timings that your opponent needs to learn if you're going to deal with, you know, the A assist. That's kind of gnarly. And that's going to bring us to the last portion of our our class. This is not going to take too long, but, you know, we were at the last one for nearly an hour. But this is going to be the last portion of our class. Basically, it's going to come down to a very simple and very important question. How do you deal with your opponent's assists? Because if assists offer this much control, what do we do? And this leads back to positional awareness. What does positional awareness mean? It means being aware of when your opponent's assists are available, but also being aware of what kind of assists your opponent has and how far they can reach. The more knowledgeable you are about your opponent's team, the more effective you are at dealing with it. So, for example, even though Beerus A and Vegito A are incredibly dumb, if you know how to deal with those assists, or you fight them a lot and you have really good counterplay, it can actually be pretty easy to work your way around those assists. And those assists do not instantly win neutral against you anymore. And you're going to be like, wow, what's happening? Another thing to remember is, just like before, when we did the C assist demonstration, assists have different cooldown timings. Like, assists have cooldown. C assists have even longer cooldowns. So if you have assist cooldown timing, right, this is going to be very, very important, because it is in your best interest to essentially fight your opponent. Because remember that description here, right? This is very important. Lab Coat kind of eats Vegeta alive here. But not if he has these. Here, with these assists, Vegeta actually has a lot of control over Lab Coat and what she wants to do, because if Lab Coat beams and he jumps away and calls Kefla, he can actually counter hit the beam. You can also control the space here and whatnot. If she spins, he can call Beerus to bait the spin and then 2H, deal with anything that she wants to do afterwards. Like, there are a lot of ways he can control Lab Coat's vicious and numerous options in this particular situation. However, Lab Coat has to be mindful. She does not automatically win. She has to be careful with these assists, and if she's not, even though she's taking less of a risk than the rest of the cast, it is still a risk. And it is in Lab Coat's best interest to drain the assist first before she starts making aggressive movements. So, how do we work the position? What's the best way to deal with it? Well, try to draw it. Basically, you want to navigate positions in a way that's very flexible. Meaning, positions you don't want to do is you don't want to over-retreat on an assist. So, for example, if this assist gets called, right? If that's Lab Coat's assists... If this is Lab Coat's assist, she's probably going to call it if I'm right here. And I'm going to try to avoid it. So I'm coming in on her. Whoa, okay. You know? Stop there. Versus if she calls Bluku, which would be a very different assist. Whoa. So that's catching me, right? So now I can kind of move in a way that avoids it. But here's a problem, right? What if she calls UI and I do this? Now I'm going all the way back and giving her space. So what's going to happen is that if I move like that, she's probably going to do... And now I just gave her zoning. Which is very powerful, because now she has tempo. That's an issue. So what if I do... you know... Here. I don't give her zoning. I still have a little bit of tempo, because I can still jump back, call my assists, right? You know? still have some tempo, and I can still control the angle of attack. I still have an avenue of attack here. I still have a little bit of a pin. I can come back in, call Beerus. You know, I can start doing stuff like that. There's a lot of different ways I can play that situation. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see whenever you're trying to avoid your opponent's assist is that it could be a strike assist and you're all the way over here. And you have no way of attacking, and even though your opponent just whiffed an assist, you just gave them the positional advantage. And now they can effectively start zoning you, they can start messing around with you, and you basically have to spend your assists just to win neutral all over again when you were this close. So, best thing to do is learn the ranges of your assists and your character's particular assists, because doing so will go a very, very, very long way of understanding what their sphere of control is. So if you know that, for example, an assist is going to control zone 2, you need to get into zone 2 and then try to bait it. And if they don't call the assist, because it's the next part, because I see you guys being like, hey, you didn't call your assist. Hey, you didn't call your assist. Hey, you didn't call your assist. You could be like, hey, you didn't call your assist. Fine, I'm taking it. Take your space. Take your space. Make them regret not stopping you when they could have. You have to take your space. It's all about give and take. That basic strategic awareness is going to basically carry you guys really, 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 really hard. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and call this stream, guys. It has been absolutely fun. Thank you, Neo Judai, for your wonderful raid. And thank you guys who came from Neo Judai and decided to stay with us and watch what we were doing. I really appreciate you, and I hope you guys learned something, even though you weren't here for that long. If you guys want, I would recommend subscribing or following us, so that way you can keep up to date on new masterclasses like this. I do these ideally every Monday. I'm going to start getting a little bit regular with that again. So I'm going to do these Monday at either 8:30 or 9:30 Central Standard Time. Let me know what time works for you guys. And I also have a stream schedule that I'm going to share on Twitter. So if you want, follow me there. If you guys like what you see here and you want to take your training to the next level, consider subscribing. It gives you access to a Discord where you have access to me, Star, and my Angel trainees, which are handpicked trainees that will help you learn the game. We have fantastic trainees. We have Fuzzy here, who's constantly, been my main person right here. I have Saber, a trainee in training, and they would be more than happy to run drills with you and practice with you. You'll be in a community that really wants to get better with you, so I would consider joining. But thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. And before I dip, do you guys have any questions that you want answered? I will be here for maybe 2 minutes. So you guys have 2 minutes to type in a question, and I will answer it before I leave. Do you guys have any final closing questions? All right. I might take that as a no. In that case, guys, I will see you all next time. Make sure to tune in tomorrow around the same time, as we will be doing a stream reviewing Stars matches on Wanted. Make sure to catch him on Wanted, guys. It's going to be fantastic, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. Good night, y'all.